Hello, my name is Malik. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. Welcome to PM Express. On the show tonight, we are celebrating a man whose death has shocked many, not only in the opposition New Patriotic Party where he belongs, but many in the governing National Democratic Congress and the nation at large. He died at 70, but the things that he did both in and outside government are the things that many remember him for. I'm talking about the late Jake Obetsebi Lamptey. On tonight's show, we will celebrate the man's life and what he did for the nation Ghana and his party, the NPP. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Tonight we are talking about the late Jake Obetsebi Lamptey. He was a man of many parts. He was a marketer, a respected one at that. But one of the things that he's credited with is putting former President J.A. Kufuor at the castle, at the seat of government as President of the Republic of Ghana. Jake was credited with leading a campaign with unparalleled creativity, a creativity that helped then opposition NPP to win the 2000 elections. Let's listen to the man himself, former President J.A. Kufuor, what he says about Jake Obetsebi Lamptey.
Very sad. I don't think I have recovered from the shock and sadness that came on me yesterday. Because well, I didn't get to know of his illness. Some time ago, I think about, make it 3 years or so back, he went to South Africa, came back a bit slimmed. As you remember him, had always had a bulk. He was a heavy set person. But he came back then looking very trim and nice, and I commended him. And in fact, asked how he'd got into this new shape. And he told me he had been given a diet, and it was a diet that slimmed him. So then, was it last year? I saw him again, and he looked slim again. And I thought it was part of the dieting. I remember some people observing that perhaps he wasn't well. I didn't agree with them. I said, no, the man was working on his size and shape, dieting. Then, say, for the past 3 months or so, I didn't see him. And it didn't occur to me that he wasn't well. Didn't get any news at all of his illness. 2 days ago, I went to the Ghana-Ivory Coast border in Bunahafo for some function. Got back to Kumasi very late. Then yesterday morning, about between 6 and 7, I got a call, and the message was that he had gone. I couldn't believe it. So how? No. So I remember even requesting Mr. Ejikum. I spoke with him on the phone. He was in Accra, I was in Kumasi, to check and confirm whether this thing that was floating around was true. But Ejikum phoned later to confirm that the message had come, that Jake had died in London 3 a.m. of yesterday. And since then, I haven't been myself. Very sad.
What do you think is the legacy that Mr. Obetsebi Lamptey left for Ghanaian politics? To appreciate what he did, you should know that he was my campaign manager 2000, the campaign that got me into the presidency of Ghana. And he was a devout Dankwabuzia man, committed to the tenets of the tradition: rule of law, respect for human rights, respect for freedom of thought, speech, and association. I was also a respecter of individual initiative, private sector. These things constitute the
core of the Dankwa tradition, Dankwa Buzia tradition, and Jake was committed. It wasn't too surprising because he was born into the tradition. His father was one of the big six, and he grew into it. He also excelled in his chosen field of advertising and communications and public relations. And he was a real expert. That's what I found of him. And so he helped for us to come and show our country what outside of the political divide could do for the nation.
And I was coming to that. This is a man who helped you to win the 2000 elections, obviously because of his skills as a campaign manager. Would you say, or does the NPP have that caliber of person like him now, looking ahead to the November polls?
NPP is a very big party. If it's not the biggest, then at least it's one of the two biggest in the country. But it could well be the biggest. And it's full of people of talent. So to make a statement that there's nobody like Jake, perhaps it's too much a statement to make. But I would say that filling the vacuum he's left might be quite a challenge. It's not easy. Because as I said earlier, he definitely was an expert in his chosen field. So his replacement would be quite a challenge. But having said that, I would say that nobody is indispensable. We all come and go. We play our roles. When the time is up, we go. He played this very well. And my appeal is for the party to close ranks, to hold together, to put our side of the arguments across to Ghana in hopes that this year Ghana would favor NPP by returning NPP to power. And when we do that, then Jake would not have served in vain altogether. We would have honored Jake in ways that he really deserves.
You're welcome back. You just heard former President J.A. Kufuor speaking to the role, the crucial role that the late Jake Obetsebi Lamptey played in his becoming president by being his campaign manager in 2000 and repeating the same in the 2004 elections. Jake was President Kufuor's campaign manager that helped him to retain power in 2004, serving 2 terms and leaving office after the 2008 elections. Joining me on the phone is one of the NPP stalwarts who worked closely with Jake and who can tell us about the man's life. I'm talking about Professor Aaron Mike Okoye. Prof, if you can hear me, welcome to PM Express.
Thank you very much.
Prof, what would you say you remember Jake for?
A committed, highly professional gentleman, committed and dedicated to the cause of the Dankwa Busia Tumbo tradition. It will appear that politics flowed in his blood. You know, his father was the founder of the Man Party. It was one of the political parties and other organizations that came together to found the UGCC in 1947. Okay. No wonder he consistently followed the pathway of his committed father. Jake Obetsebi Lamptey believed in the tenets of the Dankwa Busia Tumbo tradition. He was not a person who met the founders on the way. He was right there at the beginning, from the founding of the club that started the political party. And during the Dubois period, I was a special assistant to the candidate.
Okay, so you're a special assistant to candidate Eduboah Henning.
Yes.
And this was in 92.
1992. It was the height of my very special relationship with him because he was in charge of publicity.
Jake.
And I was virtually the liaison officer between the candidate and the office that was doing all the publicity. That is when he was the managing director of Lintas.
Lintas, yes.
And of course, that meant a close relationship that I've always cherished. It was not a personal or private relationship. It was a very official relationship, full of mutual self-respect and commitment to a cause that is the development of democratic governance in our republic. And how to sell the message, how to carry our word across, how to let people understand our cause, how to disabuse the minds of people about some of the misgivings. These all have to be done not just anyhow, but with professionalism. And in that connection, Jake was the man of the moment. And he did it very, very well.
He executed that role of publicity.
Very, very well.
Absolutely.
And one thing is that he showed that his commitment was not personal. What he did for Dubois, he did for Kufuor. What he did for Kufuor, he did for Kufuor. All towards the realization of the democratic credentials, good governance, social justice, and equity values of the tradition. And it is very, very important for us to always remember this kind of sterling quality. There have been times when you are loyal to a candidate, some people tend to call you names. A true party man must be loyal to the candidate who is chosen at any given time.
Okay.
100% loyal.
And you think Jake did that?
Yes, so that the ultimate objective will be realized. Whoever was the candidate of a particular time, and it's something that I believe so much in also, Jake was there to help him in any possible way to realize the objective of the NP.
Prof, we know what he did in terms of the party politics and managing the party's communication. We know that he was the first chief of staff for President Kufuor in early 2000, and then he became tourism minister. As minister, what would you say he did for the nation? We know what he did for the party. What would you say he did for the nation that for you was outstanding?
In terms of the tourism ministry, which is quite a novel area to Ghana in a way, we are not deep in it. When we talk about Kenya and others, I mean, we are small fry. In his time, tourism became a talk of the time, like we all know. And also, you remember the diasporan activity.
Absolutely.
Which a number of African Americans came over to retrace their ancestry. That was given a big booster during his time. And it was very, very well managed, not only to bring income, but also to expose Ghana to the American business community with regard to a number of opportunities. In fact, the greatest tribute we can pay to him is to rediscover ourselves so far as tourism is concerned and show that we have the capacity to make 10 times more than what we are doing. Innovativeness to ensure the relevant attraction that will go to earn serious exchange for this nation.
Because we know his role in the introduction of the paragliding festival. We know the introduction of the chocolate day, the National Chocolate Day. We do know also that he spearheaded the idea of Friday wear, and all of these were embraced. Would you say it was because of his telemarketing qualities that he was able to do this?
You know, that's the beauty about management and marketing. In fact, I had but let me add, so far as Friday Wear was concerned, Honorable Chiramatin was also highly involved in letting this come to be.
Okay.
But one thing is that every good idea must be marketed. And marketing is a specialty of this gentleman. How to conceptualize and how to market and make others accept it. This is something that we must value. And when he said it, he got involved and he marketed traditional Ghanaian clothing. This is something that we should learn seriously from. At one time when I remember in the UK, there was foot and mouth disease that virtually destroyed the British beef industry. Mm-hmm. When it was restored, Prince Charles was seen eating British beef on TV. And not only Britain, but the whole world came to accept that, of course, the disease is over. What the prince can eat, we can also eat. Our leaders must learn from this kind of situation. We must lead the way. We must conceptualize, bring the ideas. When we bring the idea, we must lead the way so that others can also join in. He was a good conceptualizer and was able to market the ideas.
Prof, Dr. Arthur Kobna Kennedy, who was the Director of Communications when Jake was national chairman of your party, the MPP, in the 2008 elections, wrote some tribute to Jake. I want to read a part of it to you and pick your thoughts on that. Before then, let me read a few comments sent by some of our viewers. This one says, "We will always remember Jake for one word, inshallah." And I agree with this commenter because I'm a Muslim and I marveled at how perfectly he pronounced the Arabic words inshallah. And this texter is saying, "We will always remember Jake for one word, inshallah. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Maxwell." This person is sending this from Talensi constituency. That's a Talensi constituency youth organizer of the MPP. This one says, "He was man of principle. Indeed, MPP has lost a mighty oak. May your soul rest in peace." This person hasn't stated his name. This one says, "Malik, please let the current politicians know that they will all die one day. They should better stop the unquenchable taste for amassing state resources and stop talking like they won't die. Jake should go and face..." This is a bit in a bad taste. I won't continue to read it. This one says, "My condolences to the Jake's family, the MPP and Ghana at large for such an irreplaceable loss. No wonder the whole nation is distraught. Jake was an embodiment of excellence and nationalism. He achieved almost everything in life. Even as we mourn him, we should also celebrate his life for a life well lived." Idi Muhyiddin. Prof, I was talking about Arthur Kennedy's write-up, and Arthur Kennedy is narrating an incident in Tamale where violence broke out. And he is saying that while some hot-headed members of the party were asking for retaliation and escalation of violence, Jake kept quiet and listened. And then he said, quote, "I did not get into politics to cause pain and suffering. I know firsthand the toll of politics. We need to calm things down." He said after Jake uttered these words, he directed him, Arthur Kennedy, to issue a statement which Jake then edited and released, which calmed tensions. Would you say Jake's background, and you told us about his history and his father's role in the formation of the UGCC that led the struggle for independence, would you say the history of his own family and his experience made him a calmer person in our politics, given how tempestuous our politics can be?
You remember the story regarding to King Solomon, the wise man, the wise king? The two women who were claiming a child. The wise king said, cut the child into two.
Yeah.
It was a litmus test. And then give half to each woman. The person who was not a natural mother started to jubilate. The natural mother said, if it should come to that, then please give the child to the other woman. The king could immediately tell who was the real
mother of the child.
You see, when you are really a nationalist and you really love this country and the politics of it, you don't want to turn the country into a conflagration because of politics. It should be a contest of minds, a contest of ideas, beliefs, values, and alternative policies. This is what politics should be about. And I remember very well that in all my dealings with him, he liked to ask me to conceptualize a number of issues. And then you play with how best it could be presented so that it will be acceptable to as many Ghanaians as possible. So always he will look for the issue. What is it we want to do about agric? What is it that we want to do about our energy? And I remember at one time when we were looking at the manifesto and I said, energy must be sufficient, efficient, and cost effective. He told somebody, please write that down.
Because he's a creative person.
Into a very presentable and effective formula. This was the man. Let me please take the opportunity to add one thing. He was so democratic that he would not impose upon any person. There was a time, getting to the end of his tenure, Mr. Obetsebi Lamptey wanted a certain top-down approach in the selection of our national leaders, But people know this thing. Then there was a lot of discussion and, in fact, bitter criticisms. And there was also a demand for a national council meeting to determine the matter.
Mm-hmm. That was when the idea of one man, one vote was being mooted.
Yeah, what the controversy about the selection.
Okay.
What he said was, it should not be a matter for fight at all. I am going to call a national council meeting so that the council can decide on this. When he got to the meeting, he presented that proposition. A number of views came out against it. He was the first to declare. He didn't even have to get to the vote. Okay. When it was obvious that that was a consensus, which was against the position that he had taken. He quickly accepted it. He ruled on the consensus, gavelled it, and everybody was happy. Leaders must not try to prevent people from determining issues, one, at any level. Two, they must consult. Three, they must yield to the consensus, howbeit against their initial position. This is the quintessence of democratic governance. And when they do that, they are not showing weakness, they are showing strength.
But before I let you go, in spite of that, it didn't help him in his leadership of the party, for the party to be able to retain power, for the party to win power in 2012, did it?
Oh no, unfortunately not. You can't win them all, can you? There are so many countervailing forces in life. And like somebody says, you win some, you lose some.
There are,
cannot win them all.
There are those who think the MPP must do everything it possibly can to win this election because that will be in honor of his memory. And former President J. Kufuor shared this when he granted us an interview earlier. Do you share that view?
It's a very great view. And it has happened in many ways. When Manchester United lost a number of players, Bobby Charlton, who became the captain, inspired his men. Let us go out. Let us win this cup in honor of all our colleagues who died in that painful plane crash. They went ahead and won the cup. So there are times when certain painful situations can inspire people to attain certain heights. Let this pain inspire us to attain the cup and dedicate it to his memory. And not only the victory per se, but also the good governance and the development that will follow, so that we will say he led a worthy life.
Prof, on that rallying note, we will take a break at this point. When we come back, Mr. Stephen Asamoah Boateng, former information minister under the Kufuor regime, who also worked with Jake, will join us as we celebrate Jake Otanka Obetsebi Lamptey. You are watching PM Express. My name is Malik Abbas Dabu. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
Bring tension down by sending armed men to raid an office where people are peacefully going about their work, just doing their mathematics. Nobody here was manufacturing bombs. Nobody here was assembling any weapons. If they had wanted to come to see if any weapons were here, all they had to do was to come quietly with a warrant, and they would have been shown around. Instead, they come invading the place, throwing people around, ordering them to lie down on the floor at danger of death, and to do what? Well, the next plan is to turn around to the government and tell to the government, if you are not afraid of what we will produce in court, then leave the matters alone.
You're welcome back. You're watching PM Express, and we are celebrating the life of Jake Obetsebi Lamptey, former national chairman of the MPP, former chief of staff, former tourism minister, and many other things. He was talking about an incident that happened in 2013. 2013, when the MPP was collating evidence that they said pointed to the fact that the elections were rigged. They were collating this evidence to go to court to take a petition to the Supreme Court. And when they were collating this evidence, the room where they were collating the evidence was raided. That's what Jake was talking about. Let's look at a few comments that some viewers have sent to us. This one says, we will never get Lamptey again in this country. Talking about great leaders of this country, I will say he is one of them. This should tell us that death can call you anytime, anywhere. So we must be careful. Douglas. This one says, this is from Simon. He says, may his soul rest in perfect peace. This one, Jake was an affable politician, very gentle. One thing I like him is that he was always a vocal person. Though I'm a follower and supporter of NDC, he's one of the finest politicians the nation has produced, if not the best, but amongst the best. Rest in peace. Awal Gumbehini. This is Gumbehini Sav, NDC Youth Wing, Tamale Central. Let's see this one. This one says, Jake, my condolences to Jake's family, the MPP and Ghana at large for such an irreplaceable loss. No wonder the whole nation is distraught. I think I've read this earlier. This one, okay, this is so much. But we have Mr. Asamoah Boateng. Stephen Asamoah Boateng is a former information minister under the Kufuor government, and he's known as Asabi. That's his pet name. Mr. Samuel, I think if you are on the line and you can hear me, please welcome to PM Express.
Thank you very much, Malik.
Good to hear from you again.
I've maintained a strategic silence mode for a while, and Jake has made me break my silence.
Are you in
a very sad mood?
I imagine. How is I understand you are in the Western region. How is that place?
Well, I went over to Takwa to meet and talk to the TESCON, our group at the University of Science and Technology, and we received the news there yesterday. Very, very sad news. All the students just felt so down. We had to try and get a program underway, but you could see the room wasn't as brilliant and enthusiastic as we went over. We just had to cope. Jake has left a huge vacuum in our lives, but such is life, I suppose. We all know there's a beginning and an end. That's why we need to be always conscious and worship and serve the Lord who brought us to this world, I suppose.
Tell us how you heard the news.
It was yesterday morning. Indeed, it's such a mixed feeling. I've been talking to Jake. I mean, I remember late last year, when Rubo came out and he passed on. I called him that very day, I think in the evening, and he said to me, and I said to him, Jake, are you okay? And he says, Stephen, what's going on? I said, well, I thought I would be speaking to you from the grave. And he burst out with laughter. I said, no, I'm still alive. I don't know what happened. And he wasn't like sick on a sick bed or anything. He decided of late to take a private life and just not become too public. And even when he was in Accra, he was almost in the sea where he's got a little place in Kokobita, and he goes and hide there for a while. So, and I was also doing some few things for him. I mean, myself and Jake have been so close, and when he needs something running around to do, says service work rate is one of the best. I think that's your commendation. But he knows me from the time he was chief of staff when I was a special assistant under the council. The rate at which we started to work, even before the election and after the election. So I was doing some work for him. And he said to me he'll be back. He will be in Accra soon. So I was expecting him back. So yesterday was a shock. I mean, I had to call. I was scrambling to call him. I have his number. He wasn't responding to the calls. So I called Charles Taylor, one of our closest friends with Jake. Charles wouldn't take, so I sent him basically very urgent text messages. Then I got Brian Champ on the line. So Brian confirmed it. I later confirmed from other sources. So it was bad news for me and everybody, I suppose.
How did you get to work with Jake? How did you come into contact with him? Was it in political life, or you met him before you met in political life?
It was political life. Don't forget, I left Ghana when I was 23, I think, and 24. And probably know my history.
Because you were causing trouble as a student leader and you were chased out.
The friend of the Rollins at that time, who became our head of state, civilian close. We were friends beginning when I was Madina student president. Then he did a coup, and I led the students in the Koko evacuation at some more point. Well, we fell out because I realized that he was taking the country to a different direction, and we needed to think through, all of us, not with the guns, and so we had our own problems, but we fell out. And so I didn't know Jake at those era. Those were hectic days with the revolution going on. But I remember when I went to London, I sort of got the party people together, Jake Spencer, Kujumti, SK Boafu, Boyana Ngoma, Jepe, my own friends, Mankaba and Pretum Sapo. We all got together and said, look, let's try and regroup. I believe Ghana will not go down this revolution line for long. It will come back to the civilian rule. And so we prepared, and at some point I met Jake, very affable gentleman. I call him MP Bruni. He speaks the Queen's English. and his huge frame alone makes you take notice when he comes around. So he became a friend, but not very close. So I got closer to him just before the election when I finally came back to Ghana to help.
You are talking about the 2000 elections?
Yes, please, 2000 election, yes.
When he was campaign manager?
He was the campaign manager. My brother, Bambuche, was also the
general secretary at the time.
And they had the party headquarters. So those guys, whom I've known for a long time,
was national chairman.
Was the national chairman. So I came and fitted into the organizational structure. And because I wasn't in Ghana for such a long time, my role was to restricted to the computer systems, to run the systems, make sure we are linking up with every part of the party in the country and getting the results in as early as we can. We did an awful lot. And I remember at some point I went to Jake, and that's why Jake took me into his family. I went to Jake in his house because we were running part of the system in his house near the Togolese embassy. And his computer had jammed. And Jake had no idea how to get the system to run. And I said, get out, let me do the thing for you. And he went to talk to some party people outside on the garden. And I had fixed it and I was working. So he asked me, how did you do this? And I said, this is my secret. I'm not showing you how I did it. And so he said, well, and I said, that's why I
the computer guys always do that, don't you?
You don't show them your secret so that you become relevant sometimes. So Jake said, Asabi, you are too clever. Okay, now you are in this office. You are not going back to the party office. You are with me 24 hours. And that's how me and Jake got on. So, and I used to drive his cars. All the car keys were with me. I had just come from London. I didn't have a vehicle to move. I used my sister's vehicle at we were in West Lagos. But Jake gave me access to all the vehicles. I could move anywhere. I slept in the couch. It was very hectic, but we were running a very good campaign.
So you got stuck in his house until the elections were over?
The election night was very interesting. I have a story to tell, but that's not for another day. But that I can tell you on the election night.
You should share it with us. We want to know what happened on election day because there was a runoff. So the first round.
There was a runoff. In fact, let me go to the runoff because that was the interesting part. The first part was that we knew we would push the NDC to the second round. We knew that, and we had done that successfully. So we had to quickly recruit for the second round. I remember I quickly shot back to London to go and also mobilize some party people
and get a few pounds.
And get some few pounds, right? Because those days I came into Ghana with one of these smart mobile phones with an earpiece, and I had the earpiece talking, and nobody could see a phone in my hand. And some of them said, "This guy here, he's always talking. Is he correct?" But I had the phone in my pocket, so I've been linking up with all the party sectors in America, in the UK, in everywhere. And Jake will ask, what's going on? So we'll brief ourselves. But then when in the second round, I remember it was very crunchy. The election was on a Thursday night. It was on a Thursday. It went into the very late in a Thursday night. But we knew from our figures that we were taking a commanding lead. But it was the question of how do we break the news? Electoral Commission said we should wait. We had about 40 constituencies in our trip, which we were aware of the figures before even it came to the Electoral Commission strong room. And so we said, well, let's wait till Friday. So Friday came, the whole country was on a tenterhooks. And most people knew we had gone, but who would make the first move? And I remember we then ended up at a meeting at the chairman's house, almost the whole national executive. And I did the calling. I went for Jake's phone, home line, and I said, let me call a national executive meeting. And those guys said, no, we can't wait for a while. But we picked certain signals, and we had to meet and make some decisions. But the short and long of it was that Jake and I moved along, and he gave me the list. I called people together. And later on, when it was done, at about 2 a.m., almost everybody was tired, going to sleep, and it was left with Jake, myself, and Honorable Hackman also.
The strong people.
Well, not strong as well. We were determined not to sleep. I had decided that I had not slept for nearly, I think, three nights. Very tired, but sometimes we put our feet in the cold water bucket and just make sure we don't get sleeping too quickly. And we went to Hackman's house at Tetekwasi Sikelele, where he runs his big shop. And that's when we
near
began
Emmanuel Eye Clinic.
Exactly. That's when we began to push and talk to our counterparts within the NDC group. And we got the assurance by the morning they will concede. And I'm glad that by 6 o'clock, my old uncle, I call him Uncle Professor Mills, had conceded. That was Saturday morning, and the country broke into a jubilation all over everywhere.
Okay. Let's talk about now Jake spearheads the campaign, the party wins elections, and then he gets into office as the first chief of staff. Now, you worked with him in the castle. How did he manage this newfound power that, because this was a party that had been in opposition for such a long time, and you had just won elections from a party that had also been in power for a long time. How did he manage this transition from opposition into government? How did he rein in everybody to ensure that people didn't behave in a manner that was not inconsistent with democratic practice?
Yeah, it's interesting you raised that subject, and I would say without hesitation that it was a team effort. I would give a lot of credit to then President Kufuor-elect.
Okay.
We quickly somehow we had a team going into the election. The only negative was the jumping of the boat by Inusa, Alhaji Inusa. He was like a king. He was the key to most of the things we were doing. Then we were sort of left without him. And Jake occupied that space very nicely, and we moved. But I remember when power then arrived, and after we
You're talking about Hawaii Akubu.
No, Alhaji Inusa.
Okay, yes. Alhaji Inusa, who left just before the elections and joined the NDC.
Joined the NDC about 3-4 months before the election.
Yeah.
So we were all like a bit of worried, but we had to regroup. And I give credit, as I said, to President Kufuor. At that time, getting to the election, we had a team. So immediately after we knew we had won, we quickly had to meet. And I was, as I said, I had just come from London, so I was moving around, giving I was the organizer, being sent around and do this, do that. And those days there wasn't a lot of mobile phones around. Because I had my phone, I was relied on to do some legwork. But I remember they got together as a team, the national executive, Dan Botre, Day Size, everybody. They quickly rallied around, and suddenly we realized that we had a huge responsibility to quickly think through before the handing over. Remember, the election was considered on a Saturday, which was, I think, 31st or thereabout. 30th. So we had about 1 week to get ready before the inauguration at the Independence
January 7.
Exactly. And that was supposed to be a Sunday as well. So we quickly got together, and Jake was smart. When we decided, and we had a problem because, one, we had to go into the castle within a shortest time. We didn't have a clue how to do that, and where were we going to sit, who was sitting where, and where would the president be? And they decided the president would have a temporary place at the State House. But then because the civil service that we are going to work with, and the key people are in the castle, the staff or the state personnel we need to work with, then the chief of staff has to move in there. So Jake moved in there with myself. Initially was myself. Then later on we got Obushi Saikofi, and then we got Sam Somwa, then we got Ferdinand Ayim to be with us. And funny enough, we all huddled ourselves into one room. I would tell you the secret behind that. It was funny. Some people were scared in going to other rooms. That one I'll tell you off. Obviously, nobody. So we all huddled around Jake in the same room with one long desk. Now with our chairs on it, Jake had the table in front of us, and Jake quickly decided, like, we are new in government. Within the castle, we need to maintain everybody. So quickly, he rounded up with the castle staff and told them that, look, we are here to work with everybody, and nobody should panic. No one will be dismissed. It was like some of our colleagues were, what's wrong with you? We are in government. We need to get rid of them. Jake said, no, you don't do that. It's a continuity. It's a government. It's not. We haven't done anything strange. We won an election, the Ghanaians. So, and this is Jake. I remember those days. And I remember people like Colonel Lawson. Colonel Lawson was one of the strong NDC guys under Rawlings.
Asabi, this is a trip down. This is a trip down memory lane, which is very exciting because not many of us know what happened. It's interesting you are telling us in those immediate days after the elections, the things that happened.
Changeover. People wanted people to be kicked out. Jake at the castle, I remember, kept a cool head, to keep quiet. And I remember the secretary for Atudazi. I can't remember her name. The young lady.
And you're talking about Nana Atudazi, who was chief of staff under Rawlings.
Was the chief of staff at
Asabi, hold it there for me. I want us to take a break. When we come back, we'll explore what it is that he did, Jake, how he galvanized everybody and told everybody that this was not a coup. This was just an election that had been won, that everybody had to keep cool heads so that the transition will be smooth. We're taking a short break. When we come back, Asabi will continue with what role Jake played in this transition. You're watching PM Express. Stay tuned.
No, that I don't speak that. I don't claim to speak any. How am I communicating? How am I communicating with you?
What about those?
Even those who can't speak at all, okay, are able to communicate. So at least I'm able to speak. At least I'm able. Nobody speaks every single dialect in this country, every single language in this country. You will go to places as national chairman, okay, where if you speak one language, you will not speak the languages of that particular locale in which you are. How do you communicate? You communicate through interpreters. And I communicate through interpreters, same as anybody else. If a Ga speaker goes into a Dagomba area and doesn't speak Dagomba, what does he do? He gets an interpreter. You know, if a Fanti speaker goes into the Volta region and doesn't speak ever, what do? Do they say, I can't communicate? No. They will make sure that they have an interpreter who will communicate with the people. So when I go to the Volta region, I use an interpreter. When I go to Fanti land, I use an interpreter. It's just I do it for one more language than other people. So when there's competition, you will follow one person, I will follow another person. But at the end of the day, when the decision is made for who should be the one person who sits in that position, then we all of us combine and then make sure that we give full support to that person. The party is more united today than it has ever been, in spite of what some people would like us to believe, that they would like us to believe otherwise.
You're welcome back. You just heard Jake speaking English and that not affecting whatever he wanted to do as either chairman of the MPP or presidential candidate. We do know that he contested the MPP's leadership in 2007 and lost to Nanado. He and many others did that. Let me read a few comments by some of our viewers. This is Mohammed Siddiq. Kuri Mohammed Sadiq from Wa. He says, my condolences to Jake and his family. MPP has lost a person. Yeah, that's what Mohammed says. This one says, my condolences to Jake. I think it's the same person who has sent his message to us. This is Seidu from Techiman, NDC, and say, may our father, brother, uncle Jake rest in perfect peace. Let me go back to Asabi. Asabi, you were talking about in those heady days. You have just won the election, and now you go into the castle, and nobody knows where to go. And should you drive everybody out because you have won an election, remove all the people because they were connected to the NDC that was in power then, and then Jake, the strategic thinker, decides that no, let cool heads prevail. How did that help the situation?
It was very important event. I mean, Jake would always calm nerves, especially when people come and say, oh, but why this man? He used to be on NDC platform. He said, well, so what's your business? We are in government. If there's anything to do, let him carry on. If he works as a Ghanaian with us, There's no need to change him. And as I said, I remember Colonel Lawson, strong NEC. He was one of the military officers we had at the castle. We maintained Colonel Lawson for, I think, 6 months or 8 months. The secretary, I remember at some point, it's a funny story. Kwasiga had then had an experience in his office after the ministers had come in. And the experience was that he wouldn't take a tea prepared by the secretary he had come to meet. And I remember one day the secretary, the secretary had prepared it, and everybody thought, who's taking it first? So I said, Asabi would. Jake then said, that is my man. Asabi gave us the assurance that we are all okay. I said, Jake, I took it from you. We are sure that we all get here, we work together. And we coexisted with them. And I can also say that we were always linking up with the State House, because everything that we did had to go back to the presidency at the State House. And Jake will come back and assure us that the president is happy with what we're doing, keep on doing it. I had to go and see all the chief directors, the directors, those who take cabinet meetings and minutes and reports and all that. And we assured them that we are here to work with everybody. So that it calmed us down. That's Jake. Whenever we are in a tense moment, you crack a joke. He had a good sense of humor to just relax all of us.
I was just reading a message posted by Dr. Kobna Kennedy, who was relating an incident that happened in Tamale, where violence broke out. Some hotheads in the party insisted that the violence should be escalated. Jake sat down quietly and listened and said he was not in politics to cause pain, because he had experienced it. What for you makes Jake outstanding? What will you remember him most for?
What Jake used to tell us a lot about his family and his dad, and you can see he's learned a lot from, I think, the painful experience of his father's political life. And he himself had admitted at some point to us that he didn't even want to know politics at all. But for him to come back, he had decided that he had to do it in a decent manner. You see, in going into politics, you must make up your mind. What is it that you're going to do? It's public service. Indeed, you have to know that it's a service to God and to people. God uses priests and pastors and prophets to be in the pulpit. It chooses politicians to go out and do the physical job. And if you can combine the spiritual and the physical, it's perfect.
Would you say it's a travesty then that his acquisition of a property around Ridge dominated the latter part of his politics, when all the things that he did both for country and for his party were dwarfed by this controversy?
Which one? Sorry, I couldn't get the last bit. Which controversy?
I was asking whether you would say it was a travesty that all of these things that he did for his country and for his country and party appeared to have been dwarfed by the controversy that surrounded his acquisition of a bungalow that he occupied around Ridge.
I think it was very unfortunate that my own little, well, I call them kid brothers, Honorable Mani Buama and Okujeto, I know them very well. I think they took it to an extreme end. Jake is not, I wouldn't put Jake in a wicked group of people. And I don't think Jake erred in the law that we had. I mean, some would not do it, others would do it.
The court said that much, that he didn't err. I think we have to leave this conversation here. It's been great talking to you. Sometime when you come back to Accra, let's have a chat in the studio. But it's been great talking to you. Thank you, Mr. Stephen Asamoah Boateng. Thank you, Professor Aaron Michael Kwe, former Member of Parliament for Dom Kwabinya, who also joined us earlier. We have been talking about the late Jake Otanka Obetsebi Lamptey, former National Chairman of the MPP, former Chief of Staff, former Tourism Minister, who died yesterday. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. This has been PM Express. Good night.